what's interesting is that it was so effective that the U.S. Army contacted our family in the immediate months and years following UFC's 1, 2, 3, 4. U.S. Army, we're talking Rangers, we're talking Special Forces, military, law enforcement, all across the country. They saw what happened, and at that point, they became very interested in adding jiu-jitsu to their training regimen because they're always looking to have the most effective systems and self-defense protocol and defensive tactics. And jiu-jitsu just made that jump so quickly because it was proven in such an authentic engagement there in the octagon.
You have a name for that system, don't you? What's the name for the system that you've done with the military?
Yeah, so our program is called Gracie Survival Tactics, and this is GST for short. And GST is our law enforcement program, defensive tactics program for law enforcement professionals that really is designed to enable a law enforcement officer to interact with the public or a civilian in a way that is effective at keeping the officer safe while simultaneously keeping the subject safe in that encounter, right? Because isn't that, and I'm sure that's something you appreciate as well about jiu-jitsu, is if you have to get into an altercation, let's say outside of the octagon, you got into a street fight with some person for the stupidest reason that people get into street fights for. This guy's drunk, having a ball, throws something your way, hits you in the head, you go over and address the guy, now he wants to fight you. Your ability to take this person down and to tie him up into a pretzel and to talk to him, to actually negotiate and say, my friend, or as you say, lad, you're having a little too much to drink. I need you to chill out, and I'm going to let you go. But when I let you go, I'm going to need you to walk that way and get away from this gathering here because you had a little too much this evening. And you can negotiate from within the fight because of the nonviolent component. Now, the same way that's true for us as civilians, it's also true for law enforcement, where sadly, law enforcement officers are disastrously undertrained when it comes to going hands-on. I've been teaching law enforcement now for 25 years. I've been involved in this discussion of teaching law enforcement in America, and it's sad to say, and I try to expose the truth as much as possible in this regard, but the average police officer in America gets under 4 hours a year of training on how to grab a hold of someone and control them with their empty hands, right? Arrest and control tactics. Less than 4 hours a year is the average across America, which is unbelievable. And as a result of this, Paddy, what happens is a police officer gets into an interaction with the public, right? Man or woman. An officer could be a man or a woman. They get into an interaction, big or small. When they go hands-on, they are ineffective because they don't know how to do it technically. So what they end up doing is they panic, right? This is called an amygdala hijack. It's when the part of your brain that controls your conscious, rational decision-making, the prefrontal cortex, controls all those rational decisions, and really the throttle of aggression is controlled in your prefrontal cortex. When you have an amygdala hijack, it's when the amygdala takes over your brain and your lizard brain now. You are in survival mode, right? Anything goes. So when a police officer panics because they lose control of an interaction, of a physical arrest scenario, they panic, amygdala hijack, and now the level of force escalates so rapidly that they end up resorting to taser, baton, pepper spray, or in some cases lethal force much sooner than it would have been needed had the officer been equipped with some of the basic skills that you and I are so well trained in, of control, immobilization, some submissions. But the most basic control holds, if an officer has those, the level of force stays low, the liability for the agency goes down, injuries to civilians go down. So we have data now that supports all of this in terms of reducing injuries to officers and civilians when the officer is sufficiently trained in jiu-jitsu type techniques, control techniques. And for me, what I've been saying to law enforcement nationwide and worldwide is each officer needs to receive 1 hour of training per week in these skill sets. If you're not doing it at least 1 hour a week, you will not have the muscle memory to interact with the subject or a civilian safely when things aren't going according to plan. So to preserve your life and to preserve life of civilians whenever possible, 1 hour per officer per week. But I'll tell you, Paddy, it's been a massive uphill battle because there are politics at play here that really are resisting what is necessary when it comes to police officer training in America.